That's a 2019 Chevrolet Corvette ZR1.
And that's a 2018 Porsche 911 GT3.
Now those 3-digit alphanumeric codes mean a lot. In the Corvette's case, ZR1 means it's the highest performing and most powerful version of a Corvette you can get, with 755 horsepower and an optional track package that gives it a big rear wing and sticky racetrack-oriented tires.
Which makes it a perfect match for the GT3, named after a sports car racing class. It was developed by Porsche's crack motorsport division and is built on the same production line as the 911 race cars. Oh, and it revs to 9,000.
You may be thinking, why didn't we go with the GT2 RS? And while that's more of a performance equal to the ZR1 when it comes to horsepower, it costs nearly $300,000, or more than double the price of that car right there.
On your shopping list, the GT3 and the ZR1 are the real rivals. In many ways, it's a classic battle. It's American bang for buck versus European culture and sophistication.
What we're interested in is how these two super sports cars handle for your typical enthusiast on the road and at a racetrack.
So we're going to put them through the full Edmunds instrumented test, then we're going to do a few laps.
But before we do that, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and visit Edmunds.com for all your car shopping needs. One of the Corvette's primary strengths has always been value. Not only does this particular ZR1 cost $30,000 less than that GT3, it has more tire, more power, more torque, even a bigger rear wing. There's actually one more gear in its optional automatic transmission. But the real highlight of this car when you see it for the first time is the fact that its supercharged V8 engine is so big, they had to cut a hole in the hood so it can fit. Fantastic.
Allow me to be a bit geekish for a moment. This generation of the 911 is codenamed 991, and this is actually Porsche's second attempt at a GT3 version of this car. The first one was fitted with a 3.8 litre engine, which to be honest proved a bit troublesome. But this new one has a 4 litre that's been comprehensively redesigned. It's of course larger than before, but hey, at least it still fits. This is basically a race car engine, so there's no supercharger, no turbocharger, just a purity of purpose and an instantaneous throttle response. Some of the detailing on this car is just fabulous. I love this carbon fibre engine cover, and just check out this little hinge for lowering the hood. Now, unlike the Corvette, you don't have to pay extra for a giant rear wing, which has now been redesigned to offer more downforce. You do, though, have to shell out an extra $9,000 for some carbon ceramic brakes, which are standard on the ZR1. And these fabulous carbon bucket seats, they're an extra $5,000. Porsche hasn't lost its taste for overpriced options.
Despite the 255 horsepower difference between these two cars, they both reached the quarter mile in 11.2 seconds. With all that power, the ZR1 has a harder time leaving the line, taking 3.3 seconds to reach 60, and that's including a 1-foot rollout. The GT3's launch control manages the grip more effectively, getting the car to 60 in 3.1 seconds.
Both cars have large carbon ceramic brakes and sticky Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2 tyres, delivering short, consistent stopping distances. The 911's rear weight bias should mean better braking, but not in this pairing. It took the GT3 103 feet to stop from 60 miles an hour. A still excellent result, but the ZR1 did it in just 95 feet. Extraordinary.
Much like the acceleration results, our 200-foot skid pad presents another role reversal. While the GT3 averaged 1.18 G, a normally incredible result, the ZR1 put down a staggering 1.24 G average. That's a result unheard of in a street car.
Having crunched the numbers, we headed to the streets of Willow Circuit in Southern California for some high-speed lappery.
We thought about hiring a pro racing driver and bolting him into these cars and seeing how fast they could go when it comes to lap times, but then realized, what do you actually learn by doing so?
If you want to find out, frankly, Google it. Both of us have been testing cars a long time, me slightly longer than him. We spent a lot of time on racetracks in different cars, so this is about what these cars mean to you. If you're going to buy the GT3 or the ZR1, what will it feel to you on a track day?
Let's find out.
Let's find out. Do you know how bad a passenger I am?
About to find out, I think.
Oh, jeez.
So Corvette ZR1 approaching 100 5 miles an hour, we'll slow down.
Cold tires.
What we really got to talk about with this thing is the overall experience and the engine. This is such a dominating factor of this car. Big 6.2 liter V8, 755 horsepower, and my God, just listen to that. That's spectacular, isn't it?
It is spectacular. But I guarantee this, if you take a passenger out who has never been in a fast car, this car will terrify them.
It might terrify the driver too.
Yeah, it will.
This is a car, frankly, that starts as a $50,000, $60,000, GT sort of sports car, and to see it be at this level of performance is astounding. So this is the optional bucket seat.
No.
Yes.
That's not even a bucket.
It's a very wide mouth bucket. And I find that, yeah, it's more comfortable on the road than the GT3, but on the track, I'm bracing against the driver door with my knee.
This is, if you like, my biggest single problem with this car is the driving position. I'm just not comfortable. I'm moving around too much. And in something that's this fast and requires this much concentration, if you're not comfortable, if you're not properly located in the car, then you can't drive it properly. The physicality of the car, it feels heavy, you can't see the corners, you peer out with this little tiny slot of a windscreen.
This is almost like an advanced level driving experience because the steering requires so much effort, because you have so much mass, you can sense it all around you. This isn't that much heavier than the GT3, but it feels like it.
And in this car, you kind of feel like the electronics are constantly doing battle with the physics, whereas in the 911, we'll come on to that, you actually feel the electronics are an aid, they're guiding you through the process.
And there are a lot of electronics in this car. We have a very adaptive, very advanced stability control system. We've got electronic diff. We've got a sensor that's looking at the tire temperature as well as the pressure. There's a lot happening underneath, and you're a little bit more cognizant of it in this car than you are in the GT3.
You've also just got to be aware how fast this thing is. You arrive at corners 20 miles an hour faster than you think. When I jumped into it, lap 1, corner 1, you suddenly got a massive dose of oversteer just because the tyres were cold, and you've got 755 horsepower. 80 miles an hour, 90, 100. Well, Alistair Weaver's last will and testament.
That's a ride, isn't it, though?
Oh yeah, it's great, everybody, it's great. I don't wish to patronise you, but this car could not be more American.
God bless America. But we have to talk about the transmission. This has the 8-speed automatic, a 7-speed manual as standard. I believe that's the better transmission. This 8-speed, while it works great when you're in the track setting, when you're leaving it to its performance shift function, when you're driving it as fast as you can, the logic is great. As soon as you fall outside of that sort of duty cycle, the manual shifts aren't that great. They're a little bit of a delay. I'd much rather have the manual. I think overall I really enjoy driving this car a lot, but it requires a lot more from its driver to reach its capabilities.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing.
No.
Supercars should be super, it should be a challenge. One thing that I just think is extraordinary in this car, probably the car's best feature, the brakes, they're just fabulous.
Absolutely. You know, you think that the Porsche would have the braking advantage. It's lighter, it's got the rear weight bias, but this thing stops so quickly and with so much confidence.
Should we try the Porsche?
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, that's all right.
Cold tires.
9,000 RPM is a beautiful thing, isn't it?
It is a beautiful thing. And immediately you just realise how agile this thing is. With a little bit of push when its tyres are cold.
With this naturally aspirated engine, it's so responsive as soon as you dig into the gas pedal.
I think as we all go towards turbocharged engines, that's something that we're going to have to get used to. That wonderful throttle response and that undiluted sound which we have with this 911 is going to go away. And even Porsche isn't sure how long they can hang on to this.
This is such a different experience than the Corvette. It's about the same size when it comes to length. The Corvette's wider and lower in height. This is about 400 pounds lighter than the Corvette, but the steering feels even more so than that.
You really feel like you can just get into this, and it gives you an instant confidence. Whether you have the systems turned on or off, you can really start to feel what it's going to do.
This is a very approachable car, and you're right, that's ridiculous to say about a 911 GT3.
Yeah.
Traditionally the raciest car in the Porsche lineup.
But not in a way that not in a way that means it's boring. This is still a track bias 911 and it still demands a bit of respect.
My first 2 laps in this car were faster, it felt like, than the Corvette. There were specific parts on this track, the scarier, hairier parts of this track, I was 5 miles an hour faster immediately. When you know what you're doing behind the wheel, you're still gonna feel rewarded in this car. If you're a novice, you're still gonna feel good in this car.
Yeah.
And that's quite a feat to accomplish, and that's something the Corvette definitely doesn't do.
The Corvette very much feels like a normal road car that's been turned up to the max, and they've tried all sorts of engineering trickery to make it do things that maybe just deep down it doesn't want to do, whereas this car is the evolution of 50 years of Germanic engineering. I think the steering is one of the best things about this car. Is in the Corvette it really weights up in the corners. Here it feels very consistent, and that gives you a much better sense of what the front end's doing, what the rear end's doing.
I gotta say, I'm 5'10", about 180, and this is probably the most uncomfortable bucket seat I've been in.
And I'm 6'4" and probably a similar weight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This might be the German Spec seat. A little bit taller, a little bit skinnier.
I think you need to spend less time in the gym and eat a bit more.
How do you feel about this transmission?
Well, this of course is Porsche's PDK system, which is kind of like a manual transmission with somebody changing gear for you, is probably the easiest way to say, whereas the Corvette has a more traditional automatic. So this is a lot sharper, a lot faster, and I think in manual load, a lot more intuitive. In the Corvette, you kind of have to think your way into the gear changes. Here, you just flick a paddle and away it goes.
I agree. When they're both left to their own devices on the racetrack, the shift logic between them is fantastic. But when you want that manual control, the Corvette has a bit of a delay that requires more effort, and that's not so great.
Both these cars have carbon ceramic brakes, but of course in the Porsche they're $9,000 more, but if you're seriously going to track it, I think it's going to be something that you have to have.
I admire the fact that the Corvette just throws them in with the car, because that's what the car does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they are good in this car. The
For
brakes
sure.
are, I would say, maybe on the test track, no, it didn't stop quite as quickly, but out here they feel just as good as the Chevys.
Absolutely. We've gone over a lot of the performance hardware that these cars give you, but we haven't talked a lot about the software. Both of these cars have software on board that is intended to help you be a better driver. In the Corvette's case, you have the performance data recorder, which is an onboard video data logger system. And in this, you have a phone app that you can, put on the windshield, records your video, logs your position, and tells you how fast you were relative to other laps. It's pretty cool tech.
The other thing I like about this car in terms of how you drive it is, like a lot of 911s on the circuit, you just take it in a little bit on the brakes. It just helps to get the nose in, counter that initial push, and then because of all that traction and where the weight sits, you can get hard on the power and it will just pull its way out without, in these modern 911s, going into any sort of lurid oversteer moment. If you want to make this car oversteer, then actually you really have to induce it by getting into the corner, lifting off, and then getting hard back on the power, and then it will do
Beautiful
everything that you want it to do.
Beyond lapping and testing these cars, we've also lived with them for the past week, and what's been truly impressive is how easy they are to drive every day.
If you detune the ZR1, it pretty much feels like every other Corvette. And although the GT3 is noisier than a standard 911, it's by no means uncomfortable. Of course, both these cars are really practical.
I just recommend skipping the bucket seats unless you look like him.
Oh, another top tip actually, if you're buying the 911, pay the extra $2,000 for the nose lift kit, otherwise you'll be scraping your chin every day, and that's not cool.
But let's get to it. The Corvette ZR1 is a lot of fun to drive. It has tons of character and a lot of performance, but you have to be really on your game to access it.
In many ways, it's a kind of supercar of the old school. It's worth remembering this too. The next generation Corvette will be mid-engined and a very different proposition. So if you want a bruiser like the ZR1, buy it now.
The 911 GT3 has a similar thrill, but it's easier to access at the racetrack.
And consider this, although it costs $25,000 to $30,000 more to buy new, the residual values on a GT3 are so much stronger than a ZR1 that over a 3 or 5 year life cycle, it might actually be the better financial choice.
The Corvette ZR1 has the bragging rights. It's got the top speed, it's got the power, and it's going to be a really fun car for a small group of people.
But in terms of answering the question that we originally posed, which is the best car for fast road use that's also great fun on the track, then for us, the only choice is the GT3.
Agreed.
For more information on the GT3 and the ZR1, head to Edmunds.com.
And be sure to subscribe.